Katherine Gypson for America Abroad Media. Today I'm here with Robert Salaam, the chairperson for the American Muslim Interactive Network and the co-founder of the People of Abraham. Robert, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Great. I'd like to start out with the fact that you were raised in a Christian family and were a lay minister. Can you take us back to the day of September 11th, 2001 and tell us where you were and what were your feelings and thoughts on that day?
Okay, I'll try to keep this brief. On September 11th, I actually was in the United States Marine Corps at that time. Typical day, that particular day I wasn't on duty. I was doing something off duty, basically helped raising funds for our annual Marine Corps Bowl. And I went into the control room to use the phone to order pizza from Domino's, to be perfectly honest. And it was at that moment, everyone was trying to be, hush hush. And they said, America's under attack. And of course, at that time, I might have been 19-ish. Actually, I'm losing my math. I probably was 20-ish. But, and I remember hearing it, and it's like I was taken aback because I joined during a time when, you didn't really expect to ever go to war.
Right.
And I was in in a pretty sweet position in the Marine Corps where I was working for the White House, so there was no way I was going to see combat anyway. But when you hear America's under attack, it kind of freaks you out. And I remember my immediate reaction, surprisingly, was, what can I do to help? So I ran to the barracks and put my uniform on because we really didn't know, the atmosphere at
Right.
the time. Everyone was just, shocked. So I put on my uniform, called my mother before they cut the phones off, and I remember just telling her, well, I think I'm going to do what I get paid to do. And she broke down crying, and I'm going to try to tell the rest of the story without breaking down myself. But I remember one of the last things I did prior to going back into the hangar. I remember just praying and asking for guidance. I come from a very spiritual upbringing and background, so with so much uncertainty in the air, I just did a quick prayer and prayed for guidance. And long story short, we pretty much was on alert for about 14 to 16 hours before we were notified by the White House that they weren't going to need us at the Pentagon or anything like that. So.
And you were inspired to study Islam and learn more about it.
Well, it was actually on two fronts. On one front, as you brought up, I did some lay ministry throughout my time in the Marine Corps. Basically, we didn't have a chaplain at the time in our unit, and even in boot camp, anytime they needed someone to lead prayers or counsel anyone, somehow I, volunteered for that position. I come from a pastoral tradition. My grandfather's been a minister for 50 some odd years now. And so on one level, because I led the Bible studies, I wanted to inform the flock, if you will, about this religion that I knew nothing about other than they attacked us. But on the militaristic side, as a non-commissioned officer in the military, I'm a leader of troops and a leader of Marines. And one of the things we had to do is know your enemy. And so in order to know this enemy who attacked us based on the ideology, I decided that it would be prudent on both fronts to find out more about Islam. But mainly I wanted to attack Islam. I wanted to find out how evil it was and how can I use it to, to our best advantage. I was young, so you have these
Sure.
grand schemes of what you're going to do.
Of course.
And
And when did that start to change for you?
I've probably told this story many times in the last 8 years, but to be perfectly honest, as weird as it sounds, when we were finally allowed off the base, I went and bought a Quran from Borders or somewhere. And I would say within the first chapter of the Quran, it's only 7 verses. And, in my mindset, I had this very rigid idea that I was going to hear all this contrary information to what I understood and believed, and it was going to be this wicked, evil book. And the first chapter of the Quran is Surah Fatiha, which is translated usually as the opening, which is basically a prayer, and you read the prayer in English, and it's not too far from what I had been saying all my life. So that was the initial shocker. And I tell a lot of my Muslim friends, it was Surah 2, the second chapter, that really started to get the wheels turned in my head to make me open up and think more about this religion, because there were a lot of new concepts that were introduced that really made me think. And I would say by the time I read the Quran, I read it several times cover to cover after that, I knew for a fact that I wanted to change my religion.
So you were still working in the White House at this point?
Yes, I was still in the Marine Corps. In fact, I was in the Marine Corps another 3 or so years after September 11th. So it was odd initially. One of the first acts of defiance, I would call it, is I went up to the administrative office and turned in my dog tags and had them change them over from religion Christian to religion Muslim, and
Right.
that was my big coming out in the unit, and it freaked everyone out, of course, because out of a 800-man personnel with top secret clearances and working around the president, after September 11th, you have someone that converts to Islam. I had a couple of talks with the colonel and whatever, but
So we're in the holy month of Ramadan right now,
yes, we are.
and I'd like to know what that first time fasting was like for you.
The first Ramadan, I believe Ramadan fell in November of that year, so it was a couple months later. It's the whole Marine Corps mentality. I was very disciplined, so I was able to cold turkey, if you will. I didn't know all the traditions like getting up for suhoor to eat breakfast in the morning. So I would get up and go straight to work and just carry it on as usual. Unfortunately, it gave me many hard days because at that time, now a sergeant in the Marine Corps, I had to lead formations when we would run and do physical training. So, it was kind of warm and I was fasting, and you come back after an 8-mile run and you're not drinking water. Naturally, there's a few eyebrows, and I kind of got through it, but eventually I was ordered to no more physical training because they were paranoid that I would pass out or something. So
Did that bother you to be asked to do that?
in one way it did, because as a sergeant, you're leading Marines, you don't ever want to appear weak in front of your troops, and you always want to lead from the front. So it did bother me as a leader, but at the same time I had to follow orders, and but it wasn't a big conflict. No one really likes to run 8 miles. And
True.
so,
True.
yeah.
Do you find that you're able to share what Ramadan means to you with other Americans who may not be Muslim?
One thing I do often, almost every agency I've been at, I've always had 1 or 2 or 3 people, because they get curious,
Right.
and that's the amazing thing I find out about a lot of people in America. For every person that you have that is very ignorant or hostile to Islam, there's probably 10 more who are really just curious and they want to know. So people have come to my desk from the Marine Corps even now just to ask me questions about Ramadan, about what we believe, because you're not really getting a lot of good information out there in the media today.